Hi, this is Memory Trees, inviting you to join us for a trip down memory lane as we explore the first 39 presidents of the United States. Of course, number one would be George Washington. And what we're going to do today is explore some fun facts about the first 39 presidents. So it's not a history lesson, there's just some little anecdotes that are quite amusing related to the presidents. George Washington was an enthusiastic dog breeder, particularly of hunting hounds, to which he gave names like Sweet Lips and Drunkard. Moving on to president number two, John Adams. He and his wife Abigail exchanged more than 1,100 letters over the course of their lengthy relationship. Moving across to Thomas Jefferson. He was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and he died on July the 4th in 1826, within hours of John Adams. James Madison is known for being the shortest president. He was only 5 feet and 4 inches tall, approximately, and barely weighed over 100 pounds. How about James Monroe? He was the only president ever, effectively, to run essentially unopposed, coasting to re-election in 1820. John Quincy Adams, after leaving the White House, argued a famous Supreme Court case that freed the captive Africans who had rebelled aboard the Amistad slave ship. Andrew Jackson is known for a completely different reason. The best anecdote about him is that he once killed a man in a duel. Martin Van Buren is famous for being the first president to be born an American. All the previous presidents were originally British subjects, having been born prior to 1776. William Henry Harrison lasted only 32 days in office. It's the shortest stint of any president. John Tyler, he was a busy guy and he's known for a completely different reason. He fathered 15 children, which is the most of any president that we know of anyway. James Polk, during his term, secretly purchased a number of enslaved children for his Mississippi cotton plantation. How about Zachary Taylor? Zachary Taylor was old, rough and ready, and he never voted in an election prior to being on the ballot himself. Martin Fillmore. Are some of these names unusual or not familiar to you? Martin Fillmore was actually the last Whig president, W-H-I-G, Whig president, and the party, the Whigs, imploded soon after he left office. Franklin Pierce. Well, I don't really have a fun fact about Franklin Pierce other than the fact that he was the only president from New Hampshire ever. How about James Buchanan? Well, while James Buchanan was serving as a minister to Great Britain, Buchanan helped to draft the 1854 Ostend Manifesto, which advocated for an American invasion of Cuba. Of course, everybody knows Abraham Lincoln, or also known as Honest Abe. He was the tallest president of them all, standing about 6 feet and 4 inches tall. Andrew Johnson was one of the first presidents, or one of few presidents without a pet, but he cared for a family of White House mice, which he affectionately called the Little Fellows. Let's move across to the other side because I don't have enough space to put all the presidents in a row on one side. This dashing, dapper-looking gentleman here, Ulysses Grant, was a Civil War general who had been invited to join Abraham Lincoln at the Ford's Theater on the fateful evening of April 14, 1865, when Lincoln was assassinated. But he forced to decline after he and his wife had made plans to visit their children in New Jersey, and therefore was never present when Lincoln was assassinated. Rutherford B. Hayes was the first president in the White House to have a telephone in the White House. James Garfield was the first known left-handed president. He was elected to the U.S. Senate, but he never served as an Ohio senator because he then won the Republican nomination for president. Chester A. Arthur was named in honor of Chester Abel. Chester Abel was the doctor who had delivered him. The next president that features up here on the wall of famous presidents is Benjamin Harrison. But let's skip for a second to Grover Cleveland because he was actually president number 22 and number 24. No president except Grover Cleveland had ever served non-consecutive terms. If President Donald J. Trump were to be re-elected as President of the United States, he would only be the second president in history to serve 2 terms that were non-consecutive terms. Grover Cleveland defeated James Blaine in 1884, but then he lost to Benjamin Harrison in 88, and he came back to defeat Harrison in 1892. Benjamin Harrison was the first president ever to hire a female White House staffer. Remember, I said these are fun facts about the presidents, not necessarily a history lesson. The next president we have here is William McKinley. His likeness actually appears on the US $500 bill, but that bill was discontinued in 1969, so there's a good chance you might never even have seen President McKinley on a $500 bill. The next president is Theodore Roosevelt. He was the youngest president who took office at the tender age of only 42. Moving along to William Howard Taft. William H. Taft, William Howard Taft, was the first president to hurl a ceremonial first pitch at a Major League Baseball game. How about Woodrow Wilson? Well, he is famous for officially designating the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. That's where Mother's Day came from. President Warren G. Harding, prior to taking office, wrote a series of lurid love letters to his mistress, the wife of one of his best friends. Calvin Coolidge, who was a quiet man, once said, "You lose," to a visitor who bet that she could get at least 3 words out of him. Herbert Hoover was the first president elected from west of the Mississippi River. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the longest-serving commander-in-chief, mainly as a result of the Second World War. So he served 12 years in total, and therefore is also the only president to ever have served more than 8 years. He claimed to be distantly related to 11 other presidents, including his 5th cousin, Theodore Roosevelt. President Harry Truman. The S in Harry S. Truman was just an initial. It didn't stand for any name. President Dwight D. Eisenhower was the first president ever to ride in a helicopter. One of the most famous presidents of them all, JFK, or John F. Kennedy, after being injured and honorably discharged during the World War II, Kennedy was briefly employed as a journalist during the waning weeks of the war. He was replaced by Lyndon B. Johnson, whose first career was that of a teacher. He worked at a school near the US-Mexico border for 4 years before launching a career in politics. The next president was Richard M. Nixon. He's famous for having been such a skillful poker player while stationed in the Solomon Islands during World War II that his winnings helped to launch his political career upon his return to the United States. Gerald Ford was a star football player at the University of Michigan, and he had turned down offers from both the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Jimmy Carter, the last president featured in this collection, president number 39, when his father died in 1953, Carter gave up his successful military career to move back to Georgia and work on their family's peanut farm. These are collectively the first 39 presidents of the United States depicted on 38 framed portraits by artist Lawrence Williams, who used oil on canvas to show the first 39 presidents of the United States. Memory Trees acquired this collection of presidential portraits from Colorado State University in 2018 after it had been in storage for almost 40 years. The artist Lawrence Williams had been commissioned to paint the first 33 presidents of the United States, so Washington to Eisenhower, and they hung in the rotunda at the university for several years before they were moved into storage when a number of events happened at the university, including the renovation of the rotunda. They remained in storage for almost 40 years, and during the time that they were in storage, the artist Lawrence Williams completed the final 5 presidents, which was the last of his paintings, including Kennedy to Carter. The collection is on display at Memory Trees in Lake Worth, Florida, for your viewing pleasure at no charge. And people who are interested in purchasing this collection from Memory Trees for our charity are welcome to inquire via our website at www.memorytrees.co. It's www.memorytrees.co. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.